Hey, Chris,
Yeah, Rod.
got a question for you.
Okay.
How do you deal with the stress if you're a first responder and the grief and the loss that you deal with every day, that you witness every day? How do you handle that?
Well, it's not easy, but lucky enough, we've got someone here today who can help us figure that out.
Hey, this is Rod.
And this is Chris.
We are Unqualified,
And Unsupervised.
the show where two guys try to figure out life after loss with no experts, no scripts, just experience.
We're going to have the unfiltered conversations about hard topics that no one wants to talk about, but everyone should. Coming from a couple of guys who were forced to join a club we didn't want to join. Rod, how you doing?
It's been an interesting week.
Yeah. So tonight we have Mindy Coe with us. First responder, weapons instructor, all kinds of stuff. State trooper.
Wow.
Close friend and best friend of Janice. So we have here tonight to talk about love, loss, grief in the first responder arena. So Mindy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for doing the show. It's actually, we haven't talked to each other in quite some time, so it's nice we get a chance to do so. But
yeah, I don't think I saw you the last time I was home.
No.
Oh, no, I did.
Yeah,
I
for a
did
few
for
minutes.
Christmas.
Yeah, for a few minutes. So anyway, let's get right into it. So talk to us a little bit about how and why you got into law enforcement and a little bit about your background and how you wound up where you are.
Well, it all started with my mother. No, I'm just kidding.
Good start.
You know that the beginning is a good place to start.
Let's start at the very beginning. Yeah.
Judy will love that.
Yeah. Well, she's gonna be listening. So, so I'm from Ventura, Iowa, and I grew up there. Went to high school there. I went to college at the University of Northern Iowa.
Go Panthers.
And that's how I got mixed up into your crew eventually through the UNI connection. But
the band director music people.
Yep.
Correct. Because I went to school to be a band director.
Yay.
And I did that for 2 years. I was a beginning band, 5th and 6th grade band teacher at Hudson Middle School.
Oh, wow. Bless you. I could never have taught that level.
It was actually the kids were a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that part of it. There were some other parts of teaching that I wasn't really enjoying. And on top of that, they eliminated my position with budget cuts.
Oh,
wow.
And on top of that, 9/11 happened. And so the combination of me not really liking teaching, combined with not having a job anymore, combined with me always having a fascination with the military. Even as a kid, I was always playing with G.I. Joes instead of Barbie dolls. So I decided I was.
I think I made up for it. I think I made up for it. I balanced you out. Go on. That's another story for another time.
It's yin and yang.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I balanced you out. But go on. Go on.
Yeah. So I joined the Navy, and I wanted to be a military police officer. I wanted to work with dogs because who doesn't like dogs?
Well,
and
right.
So I joined the Navy. I became a military police officer. I did just about every job that you can do in the Navy as a military police officer, except for dogs, which is fine because
that figures.
Yeah, and that's usually how it works with the military. They get you hooked on one thing and then yank it away at the last second. But it all worked out. I got a lot of really great experience, met a lot of amazing people that I'm still friends with today, and I think really started to learn who I was when I was in the military.
Yeah.
While I was in the Navy, my dad got sick with cancer and passed away. And so I decided that I didn't really want to stay with a career that was going to keep me away from my family, and I wanted to come back home. I want to be back with my mom and my sister. So I left the Navy and I got hired with the Iowa State Patrol.
It's a big jump.
Yeah, I mean, same premise. And the State Patrol as a state, organization has a lot of militaristic themes to it. There's the tradition and the chain of command and everything that I was already used to.
Sure.
And so that really spoke to me. Like I said, even as a kid, I'd always been kind of obsessed with that kind of stuff. So it made sense to me. So became a trooper in 2007, and then became promoted to sergeant in 2016, and then lieutenant in 2020.
Okay.
And after becoming a lieutenant in 2020, I had the amazing opportunity to go to what is called the FBI National Academy. And that is kind of like, I would explain it as grad school for law enforcement executives. And
sure. That's like executive fire officer program for the fire service.
Yeah.
If you want to be an officer, you have to go through that.
Yeah, if you want to be a chief, it's something that you would probably have to go to. It's considered to be pretty prestigious. And while I was there, I met a guy who just happened to be a chief in Maine. And it kind of turned into a little bit of a Hallmark movie. And lo and behold, now I live in Maine.
Wow, which a Hallmark movie and you is so funny.
Oh, I know, right? It's like, yeah, it's perfect.
Well, she had to go save the Christmas tree farm,
and yeah.
Big city girl met small town boy, and she has like they're going to open up a chocolate shop that is chocolate milk and cookies and the Christmas tree farm.
Yeah, with a Maine accent.
Yes. Yeah.
Heavy Maine accent.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So he basically speaks a foreign language. So.
Yeah, sometimes I have to ask him to repeat himself because I didn't understand what he said.
Okay, let's just pause there for a second. What's a Maine accent? Like you can't get that from here.
Well, yeah, it's sort of like Boston, but way heavier.
Yeah, so just what you do is you take R's out of words that end in R. So anything that ends in an R, that's gone.
Moda?
That R's gone now.
Moda instead of motor?
Moda.
Moda.
Yeah, very good. Moda.
Chowda.
Wada. Chowda. Very good. Very good. Now, here's the key. You're going to take that R that you took off of that word. Now you're going to insert it into another random word with no explanation. So, for example, you might want to use hot water to thaw out the meat. See what I did there?
Yeah.
to thaw.
Add an R to the end of thar, which I still can't even do. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So fun. Yeah.
It's a dialect. Yeah. It's a dialect.
It is definitely a dialect.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I have a friend and I love him to death, but his English is atrocious. And where they live, someone said, well, Rod, it's like a dialect there. They all talk like that. Their English, like the English teachers don't even correct it. They all sound like that.
Right.
But somehow it's become an endearing trait for my friend, and I've gotten past it. I've stopped correcting him in my head, But anyway, so I'm writing notes. I'm sure we'll have questions later. I always thought a sergeant was greater than a lieutenant.
No, you would be incorrect in that.
Well, yeah, because I'm writing your biography and like, oh, okay, I'm learning. I do want to go back though just for a second. It's a huge leap for the Iowa State Patrol. So you didn't want to do like local law enforcement, like you didn't want to like do like city police work or county police work. Why was the state patrol?
I wouldn't say that I didn't want to at first. In fact, I think, being a small town cop was something that I initially had in my head as like an end point for me, which is kind of funny because that's where I'm at now. But there was a sergeant who worked with. So my ex-husband taught at Clear Lake High School, and there was a secretary there, and her husband well, no, he's retired. So he was a sergeant with the state patrol in the Mason City office. And so through him, he kind of started recruiting me. And then from there, it just kind of became, well, no, that sounds like more of a fit for me.
Right.
I'd rather go do this than barking dog complaints. So that's how that
and
happened. I kind of
domestics
got recruited.
and domestics and all, those types of things. Yeah.
Yep.
I just was curious. I mean, because that's a great job, I think.
Most of the time. Yeah.
Well, what bothers me is that people are stupid and they go out in the worst weather. I mean, and that forces you to be out in the worst of the worst weather. The snowstorms,
yes.
the winds, the not being able, low visibility, if any visibility at all, the iciest conditions. I give you a lot of credit for doing that, because it is sometimes the worst of the worst.
Yeah, I mean, I've been out in some pretty nasty storms, a lot of nasty storms, and bad weather doesn't really faze me anymore. But I had some frustrating moments when, you pulling somebody out of the ditch, and I'd much rather be at home with my feet up watching TV, but I'm out in this blizzard pulling somebody out of the ditch, and I ask them where they're going, and, oh, we thought we would just go up to the Mall of America to go shopping. Like, during the worst blizzard of the year. Okay.
Yeah. We're going to drive 2 hours.
Right.
To get up there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like giving it no thought.
Right.
Oh,
yeah. It's kind of fascinating.
But I think we've come a long way, though, because in this last snowstorm that we had here a few weeks ago, about a month ago, they've learned to close down the roads. I mean, like the interstates they have gates. They keep people off the interstate.
It's not necessarily about learning to close the roads. It's about making the determination when to close the road.
Okay.
And there's a lot that goes into closing the interstate. Those gates were there when I was there, 2007 to 2020. And I think we closed the interstate maybe 2 or 3 times in that time period. And part of it is because you have to coordinate with Minnesota, because Minnesota has to close at the Albert Lee exit in order for us to close the Clear Lake segment. Otherwise, you'd have cars getting on in Minnesota, and then they'd be stuck on the interstate with nowhere to go.
Right.
And there's there's so many moving pieces. It's not just a matter of like, well, let's just go close these gates and then we're done for the day. Because it doesn't work like that.
Right. It's reversed too, because it's like, okay, if it's bad in Ames, but the gates are open here, someone from Clear Lake is like heading to Des Moines. I've got a medical whatever. It's on both ends. Got it.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a lot of coordination that goes into it.
Yeah, but I will say they've started closing more often now.
Yeah.
For storms.
That's good.
Yeah.
Usually it closes itself. That's what we would say, because the plows couldn't keep up.
Right.
And it would just get so bad that it would just close itself, and we had no option.
Right. Everybody just sit there then. But anyway, to get a little bit back more on topic of the show, Rod.
Oh, that's weird.
I'll write my questions down. I'll come back to them.
He's very curious. He likes to know about lots of things.
This is raising lots of questions.
But one of the things, Mindy, that we talked about, ahead of time was the idea of, compassion fatigue and cumulative trauma in first responders. Which we're both very familiar with, but most people have no idea what those kinds of things are. Can you kind of explain what those are?
Yeah. You may have heard, well, Chris, you probably have heard this, but, for most people in their lives, they might have 3 or 4 traumatic experiences that they live through. For first responders, there's various numbers, but it could be 300, 400 in a career.
Right.
As high, I've seen numbers up as high as like over 1,000. And, it obviously it depends on where you work and how busy it is. But we see shit. We see a lot of really bad shit.
Right.
And it is like a cumulative effect. It's kind of like a layered impact. It's like we're stacking pancakes on top of each other. And actually, one of my coworkers, I used to do debriefs after critical incidents, and I stole this line from one of my coworkers who did those with me. He always explained it as, so you have this bucket, and you carry this bucket around with you everywhere you go. And every once in a while you have a traumatic event and some shit gets dumped in the bucket. And you keep carrying the bucket around for your career, and more shit gets dumped in. I hope I can keep saying shit, because it's going to keep coming up.
It's one of our favorite words.
Fuck yeah. Go on.
Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. Right on. Okay. So you keep carrying this bucket of shit around, and eventually it's going to get full. And pretty soon you're going to have that last traumatic event. And it might not even be that traumatic, but it's just the one that there's too much shit in the bucket and it starts to overflow. And that's kind of like the breaking point of, your ability to, your capacity to take on this trauma. And it happens to all of us in some way, shape, or form. Some of us see more things than others. But Chris, you said something in the first podcast that we say a lot as first responders, and that's it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
And we're really, especially in law enforcement. I think fire is probably the same, where for so long we were just told to just suck it up, and this is part of the job, and you just deal with it. That's what they would say, is just deal with it.
Yep.
But now we know that that's ridiculous, and you shouldn't be okay after you see a decapitated teenager, or you shouldn't be okay if you're a detective working on child sex cases and you have to see all these awful images. You're not going to be okay after that.
No, you're not. I don't care who you are.
And right, we're kind of like, we're getting much better at normalizing that, and we're doing a lot of good things in law enforcement and first responder world when it comes to peer support, counseling, making sure people have somebody to talk to when they start to feel overwhelmed, or even if they're not overwhelmed yet, just like yearly check-ins is becoming a thing, and we do that in my current department. And one thing we do need to get better at is resilience training, because we talk a lot about wellness and resilience, but it's always focused on after the fact. And resilience is something that it's not like a skill that you learn after a traumatic event. Resilience is something that you have to have. You have to have those skills. You have to have those tools in your tool belt before shit happens.
Right. The safety net has to be stretched. Yeah, actually, the safety net has to be stretched before you grab the trapeze.
Exactly. And so what happens is, if you don't have those resilience skills, the compassion fatigue sets in, and the cumulative trauma, and you turn to things like burnout. You could get sleep disorders. One thing, and this is very, very common. And Chris, I know we've talked about it before and we joke about it, but our ability to normalize and compartmentalize the stuff that we see is good. It gets us through the day. But then we start, kind of like feeling that sort of numbness or detachment. And where that can become a problem is when you have somebody in your life, in your personal life, who has a traumatic experience, and now you're topped out. You've reached your max on compassion, and you're just not able to help like you should.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Or even treat your loved one like you want to treat them and should treat them. You start to take out, because you can't take it out on the job. You can't take it out on the other officers, the other firefighters. You certainly can't take it out on the civilians that you're helping. And so the only place you have to do that is to go home.
You can, and sometimes that does happen.
Yeah, true.
Right. I remember when I was going through my divorce, I got into a screaming contest with a homeless guy on Highway 122. So that was kind of a low point for me, like
yeah.
I was obviously not coping well. And so it bled out into my interactions with people, and relationship strain is, we all know that cops and firefighters, divorce is common. So
high rate of divorce. Yes.
Substance use, not just abuse, but use is also, there. So.
Well, this is sounding to me very similar to the funeral home business. In a way. No, I get asked all the time, Rod.
Yeah.
How do you deal with death all the time? And you're actually describing it. You kind of stay an arm's length away, because we're doing the job. We're serving the family, and we're helping them. So we're not like emotionally involved, and you kind of keep that buffer there, but also, because you see things like in the workroom, or like in our job, we're the ones that come and, like, you're on site of an accident, and we have to come and do the removal of someone that's
Right.
died in a tragic accident, and what we see, or what the directors see, it's the same thing. And I think there's a high
Mhm.
incidence of alcoholism amongst funeral people, because that's a coping mechanism, because they see so much. And I like your analogy of the bucket being full of shit, because it's true.
Mhm.
You just get to that tipping point, and I have seen that with funeral directors. And like I said, the divorce rate, I think, is rather high with funeral directors as well, because of them having to maintain their composure or whatever. They don't have an outlet for it.
Right. And
Yeah.
they maintain that composure even in their personal lives. And so
Yeah.
they become very sterilized and
Right.
clinical in how they treat their loved ones.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing so many similarities into that job. I never thought of it like that, but I guess you're right. You do see, and so you do see the worst of the worst. You're the first person or team on an accident, and you don't know what you're walking into.
Right. I've been dispatched to so many things that were like, oh, they fell down the steps. Then you get there and find out that husband pushed wife down the steps and she's like in 7 different directions, her body parts.
Wow.
You have no, and so, yeah, that happens. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's part of the gig.
So are
Unfortunately.
there support systems in place then for you when you going through those things?
That's what we're getting better at that. So my department, I'm in Cumberland, Maine now, and it's a small department. We have 14 full-time sworn officers. The town is a little under 9,000 population.
So very
And
similar
we
to
have
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very affluent community. It's right on the ocean.
Very
so
similar to us.
There are some similarities. Yes.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Clear Lake. Yeah.
Yeah, but our department does, I think, a great job. We have a I can never get the acronyms right, but basically she's a clinical. She's a counselor. We'll go with that. I can never get the terms right. She's a counselor who is especially trained to deal with first responders, which is a big thing for us, because cops and firefighters, paramedics, we don't want to just go talk to anybody.
No.
I think cops especially, we just don't trust people, so we need to know that the counselor we're talking to understands us. And so we have somebody who is on our call list, and if somebody needs to talk to her, they just call her up and then they bill the town.
Wow.
And the supervisory staff we can help set it up if need be, but we don't have to. We don't have to have any knowledge whatsoever. And the town pays for a yearly check-in with her. We have a great wellness program where you get reimbursed for working out, making sure you're staying physically and mentally fit. So I think our department does a great job.
Wow.
And another thing that's becoming very, very common are the critical incident debriefs that I mentioned. So what happens is let's say you have a really bad fatal accident, and maybe there's the ones with kids are always the worst. So
Yes,
we'll say there's some fatality involving kids. Within 48 hours, we're going to get together and do a debrief, and it's a voluntary thing, but we just sit in a circle, and there's no kumbaya or anything like that. But we sit in a circle. We all just explain what we did when we got there, what we saw, and so that kind of like helps fill in gaps for people, which I think helps with some resolution for them. Like, oh, I didn't realize that so and so saw that. That makes me feel better. And as you go around the room, everyone just says what they did, what they saw, and then we start, as facilitators, we start asking some questions just to get them to talk about how that made them feel, but more so just like normalizing the process of talking about it, and normalizing the concept that you're not going to be okay after you saw that. You shouldn't be okay. So stop pretending that you're okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, those critical stress incident debriefings are well, they're critical. I've been on 3 of them. And it truly, it's like you say, as first responders, we don't trust people outside of the job because they honestly cannot understand what we've done and saw and what we experienced.
Right.
So these debriefs are all of the people who were on the call, and then
Yep.
like an officer or a facilitator, and sometimes a counselor or a chaplain to help keep the discussion going and keep it civil, so to speak. But yeah,
Yep.
they're incredibly helpful, and it's like I wish there were things like that for just people in general, groups around,
Right.
not
Right.
just for us, but yeah, no, I was on one for, an infant who was sleeping on the couch with grandma, and grandma rolled over on the infant and suffocated it.
A total accident.
Didn't
Total
know
accident.
it, and didn't know it.
Wow.
And then a few hours later, after we cleared the call, we had to go back to that same house because then grandma couldn't handle what happened to her. And
Yep.
she swallowed a bottle of pills.
Oh no.
So we had to go back into this house with all of these people who just suffered this major trauma, suffering another major trauma.
Right.
So that was we had a rather large critical incident.
Were you in time?
Debriefing. For grandma, yes.
Okay.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah. So, those, that's what happens. We have to go out and handle,
Wow. That's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep.
and
we, I mean, that's our job, right? You said that. That's we just go do it. We're fixers.
Yep.
That's what we do. And then we go home and we think we need to fix everything, but not everything's meant to be fixed, and not everything can be fixed.
Right.
So that can cause some conflict, psychologically.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I've been on those calls where it's like, you know what? I have trained, I have practiced, I have studied, I've done everything I possibly could to be the best I can at this, and I couldn't save them, so that means they weren't savable. Not my problem. I don't have to worry about that. We get into that mindset, and that's not, but it still is. I still experienced that. It still bothered me that I couldn't. I just
of course
couldn't deal with that. Didn't understand that, and I think people we're doing a better job of getting first responders to understand all of those nuances and what we have to deal with.
Yeah, we're making progress,
and that's what's important. Step by step, forward every day, right? Something like that.
Forward.
Yeah. So one of the things we also talked about is first responders as caregivers. We get to a scene. I never really thought of it that way until we started talking, but we kind of are. And so when did you first realize that that's kind of what the job was about as well?
That's a good question. I think it was more kind of like indoctrination by fire when it comes to that, because one of the first fatal accidents that I dealt with on my own after I got off of FTO involved a teenager who rolled her car out into a field, and she had been partially ejected so that the car had rolled over her head, and she was still alive, but she was agonal breathing, obviously severe trauma to the head. So I was the first on scene, and I went out and I just holding C-spine because you don't know what else to do.
Right.
And trying to get the helicopter going, and it was only about a quarter of a mile from her house when I showed up on scene. And I remember holding her head, and I was looking over at my coworker and telling him to get the helicopter going. And I looked back, and all of a sudden he's like standing there, and he obviously doesn't know what to do. And he's just like, and he looked at me and asked, "What do I do?" And I said, "Just hold her hand and talk to her." And I think, so that's like that was kind of like trial by fire. Like now it's not just about coming to the scene and dealing with all of that. You're also dealing with family members. I went to the hospital afterwards, and all of her classmates were in the hallways, and it's not just about doing calculations and finding out, how fast they were going when they launched off the road. It's there's people involved. And so we have to have empathy.
When you arrived at the hospital and all this is going on, did they find you as a source of comfort, and did they have questions for you about what happened? Like could you
Some of
help
them
them
did
walk
because
through
they
it?
knew me.
Oh, okay.
Some of them knew me because my ex-husband was the band teacher, and so they knew who I was at
Right.
least. And so they did. Some of them did ask a couple questions, and it was mostly just, "Is she going to be okay?" Which you can't really like. I'm not the doctor, but
Right. I hate that question.
I think I don't even remember what I said, but I think all I said was it's not looking good or something like that, But
Right.
Right, because you can't lie to
yeah,
them,
I mean,
but you also don't want to
no.
answer that question.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it could be like
Fun
I'm not
stuff.
I'm not quite qualified to answer that question. But yeah, you don't want to give them false hope about things. But no, I just
Right,
wondered if like
right.
your presence there was a source of I don't know if comfort's the right word, but were you like maybe?
I've been to a lot of ERs, and been there, trying to ascertain what happened while the family's there, and they I don't know. I don't think generally I was seen as comfort. Many of them wanted to ask me questions, which was fine. What happened? How did this happen? But a lot of times I'm asking questions and trying to get blood alcohol and things that they don't want to think, their loved one was driving drunk. And so I think I would more often be seen as an adversary than a source of compassion. But I mean, obviously you try to be compassionate about it.
Sure, and I've been in those scenes too, and it is interesting, the dichotomy between police and fire, because I've been in that hallway, and the police officers walk through, and they're inundated with questions about what and how,
Hmm.
and then they turn to us about why and what do we do now, and
Yeah.
the quote more empathetic kinds of questions. They saw us as the more empathetic or whatever, and would come to us to ask those questions, and they'd shy away from law enforcement about that. What happened? How fast were they going? What was happening? Da 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 da. And they're kind of
Right.
in your face and kind of critical about that. And then they come to us and like, but why would something like this happen to
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's kind of a universal reaction to police and fire.
Wow.
Yeah. I think you're right.
How does the whole compassionate fatigue, cumulative trauma thing, how does that show up outside of work and at home with friends, in your own head, that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, it depends on how well you're coping with it, right? But
True.
like I said, it could show itself as, that sort of emotional detachment or sort of like a numbness. Um, Somebody comes home from their shift, they don't want to talk to the wife, they don't want to talk to the kids, they just want to sit and stare at the TV and not think. And it's because we spend so much time in the red, so to speak. And so by the time we get done
Sure.
with the shift, there's no capacity left. You're like maxed out, and so you just want to decompress. And sometimes you don't have that opportunity because there's kids, and you got to get, make supper and all these things. And so that's how it can manifest with a lot of relationship issues. Sleep disorders, sleep disruptions are huge in the first responder community.
Oh boy.
Like I said, substance use and abuse. I think more so maybe for law enforcement, but hypervigilance can be a problem because again, we spend a lot of time up in the red, and so we learn to become kind of hypervigilant about things, and then we don't figure out how to turn it off when we don't need it. Or we think we need it all the time. We're constantly looking out the windows. We're constantly watching people's hands. So that can be exhausting for the people around you. Like, can you just relax? Like, can we just watch a movie? And so that can be a problem too.
That's a new term for me. In the red, in the black. So yes, you spend time in the red. But what helps you to get to the black?
But so when she's talking about red, think of an tachometer on a car.
Right.
So it's always revving. You're always at the top end of how fast your motor is going to go. Because you're always racing to the neck, whatever's happening.
Okay, but
it's not necessarily a bank reference.
Oh, okay.
And that, right. And what you're trying to get back to is green, but what happens is, you're up in the red, you run out of gas, and you immediately tank out. Your tank's empty, so now you don't have anything left. That's when you're just sitting in the chair staring at the TV. Like
you can't give from an empty cup. You can't give from an empty tank. Got it.
No.
Yep.
No. Yep. And then the tones drop again, and you got to go back to the red with nothing in the tank.
Wow.
Yep.
And so you never get to that like green cruising, that easy cruising speed.
Yeah.
You're always one or the other. It's just
wow.
It's all hormones. It's all hormones. Adrenaline and all that. Cortisone.
Yep.
Cortisol.
Yeah, especially cortisol.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is, part of stress. You get lots of cortisol when you've got lots of stress, and cortisol is not necessarily good for you, at least not lots of it anyway.
Right.
So yeah, and I think that's something people don't realize always, especially in the fire service. Oh, you guys are just sitting around watching movies all the time. Well, yeah.
Well, you are.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. That's why we took that job and didn't take yours.
Or playing video games or washing the truck or making chili.
Right?
We know what you do.
If we wanted to be out running all the time in danger, we'd have taken your job. But then again, you know why they have firefighters. Cops need heroes too.
Yeah.
Is that a t-shirt somewhere?
I think it might be.
It must have been, because he says it every chance he has. So.
Well, I don't want you to forget. So.
How could I?
Exactly. So
anyway.
So you've experienced a lot of the same kind of personal loss you've seen in the job.
I've had my fair share.
Yeah. How is that different than on the job?
Well, it's personal, I was thinking about this after you asked me to come on, and I was just thinking about how, your story with Janice when you were helping to load her up onto the ambulance, and how we kind of go into like this, we just revert back into work mode. But it's kind of hard to do that when, again, we're fixers and there's things that you can't fix, right? So you kind of, I feel like that kind of like breaks you out of that detachment cycle, and you realize that this is real. I can't detach from this. This is, my personal life.
Mm-hmm. Well, right. I'm here every day with it. It's, on the job, I can help them and then take them to whatever facility is they're going to. And then I go do a report and I'm done with them.
Right.
And then I come home and I've got to do that again all night. So it takes a lot out of you. But do you think being your professional experience and being, a responder in those situations made that easier or harder to deal with at home?
I don't want to say that it made it easier. I think maybe I had eventually, after a few years, developed some resilience coping skills that helped. Mm-hmm. But so the first loss that I experienced was my dad in 2005, and he had so he was first diagnosed with melanoma in 1997 and had it operated on. I think he did some radiation maybe, and then was clear. He was clean until 2002, and then it came back in a lymph node, and they removed it, and then was clear. And then in 2004, it came back in his brain, and again removed it. Successful operation to remove the tumor from the brain, and that was just before Christmas, I think, or maybe it was October of 2004. And then shortly after that, even though they said they had gotten it all, he was experiencing a lot of pain in his stomach, and then went back to the doctor. And so I was still in the Navy at the time, and I was stationed in Washington, and I was in my office that day, and I knew that they were going to the oncologist, and they were going to have like results that day. And I think that there was like a time, like my mom had said, we should know by such and such time. And that time came and went, and I hadn't heard anything. And so I'm like pacing up and down, I'm like walking up and down the hallways, just waiting for this phone call. And finally, I couldn't take it anymore. So I picked up the phone and I called. And I don't remember if he answered or if my mom answered. I think he answered, and he said, "I'm going to put your mom on with us." Because this is back in the days of landline.
Yep.
Hold on, your mom's going to get on the other line.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, because I was said like, waiting for the test results. Have you guys heard yet? And I will never forget my dad telling me, "Damn it."
It's all right. It's okay.
He said,
take your time.
"Lou."
Yep.
He said, "Lou," which is his nickname for me, "I'm going to need you to be strong."
Yeah.
And I think I internalized that to the point where I just went into like this weird, like protective mode. And I said to myself, I don't remember, like it wasn't a conscious thing, but I think I internally said, okay, Dad wants me to be the strong one. And so I'm going to get us through this. And so, I went home, and I think maybe it was perceived as me being less emotional than maybe I should have been. But I think it was because I was, again, internalizing this. Dad wants me to be strong. So I'm going to be the strong one. And I think that has carried over through the rest of my, in my career even, and in, losses that I've had since then.
Sure. I get that. Janice did the same thing to me. She told me I had to be strong for everyone else and get them through it.
Well, that was nice of her, wasn't it?
Yeah, right? Right?
Screw you, Janice.
Yeah, I know, right? But you know what? She also knew who the people in our family were that I was dealing with. And that they were going to need it.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's that.
She also had that foresight. Also, she knew what she was doing, and yeah, screw her for that. And she'd be laughing now about it too.
Right, that's why I said that.
Yeah, I know.
But you both have hit on a point that needs to be talked about. And I know we have, Chris, talked about this. It doesn't go away. I mean, here it is. It's years later, and it's like it happened yesterday or today. I mean, the emotion behind it is still very strong. We just don't experience every day. But thank you for sharing that, because it's not easy to recall those memories.
And I should have mentioned before we started, actually, that I'm a crier anyway. I always have been.
I know.
But I'm also going through this really fun phase in my life. It's called, I don't know if you've heard about this. It's called perimenopause.
Oh yeah.
And apparently now I cry at everything. I cry at cat movies on the internet.
Yeah.
So
when the barometric pressure changes.
There was absolutely no way I was going to get through. Yeah, I was not going to get through this without crying at least once. So I should have just put that out there to start with.
No, it's all right. But you know what? That's the thing people need to understand is like Rod said, there's no expiration date.
Right.
Everybody thinks, well, it's been this long, you should be fine now. And you know what?
Yeah, you should be over it.
Right. It's like, you know what? I am fine, but I'm not over it. And I never will be.
Right.
And that's okay.
Nor should you be.
Exactly.
Right.
If I'm ever over it and fine about it, then it was never real in the first place.
Yeah, I think somebody, I don't remember where I heard this, but somebody once said that, or I read it, maybe grief is something that you just learn to carry with you.
Yeah.
And it, you kind of forget that you have that backpack on your back, but it's something that you never put back down. It's always with you.
Right.
We got, and as first responders, we have one hand with a bucket full of shit and another hand with a bucket full of grief. And we're carrying around with us all the time.
Yep.
Everywhere we go and everything we do. Sometimes you slam them together and they spill over onto each other.
Yeah,
That's always fun. But
they sure do.
But
Yeah, they sure do.
that was your
And then you
dad.
find yourself yelling at a homeless guy on the side.
So okay, so that was your dad. You've had other other grief.
I have.
Personal.
Well, obviously Janice.
Yes.
Yep.
What was okay? Tell me about your relationship with Janice, because I want to hear a good story. Tell us
My
something that Chris.
memory.
Yeah. Tell us a good one, and tell us something that we don't know that Chris doesn't know that'll surprise him.
I don't have any dirt on.
Oh, darn
Janice,
it!
but my favorite Janice story. I know. Well,
there is no dirt on us.
Okay,
We're
all right.
squeaky clean.
Well, I should say that before I had even met her, she dropped her skirt in the parking lot of my wedding.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
But no, my favorite Janice story was after I had texted her and said that my husband wanted a divorce. He just left, and she said, "Are you okay?" And of course, what do I say? Yeah, I'm fine, because that's what we do.
Yep.
I'm fine. And she's like, come over. And no, I'm fine. So what does she do? Of course, she fucking comes over. And I'll never forget sitting on my couch and looking up from my, I was probably on my phone, just like, lost in my own misery. And I look up and here's Janice's little ponytail bobbing across the bay window as she walks up to my front door. And she didn't even knock. She just came and, she's like, I'm here. What do you need? And I'll never, ever forget that. She was I was going to say fiercely loyal, but I think aggressively loyal might be a better word for it.
A little of both.
When it comes to her family and her friends and her sports teams, just a very fiercely loyal person.
That's a great story. That's great.
She was.
Oh. And you felt supported then. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we,
I can only imagine the plans you made that night. So
she allowed me to vent, and that was good.
Yes.
A lot of my friends were through him. That's how I met you guys.
Right.
That's how I met you and Janice. And so most of my friends was actually through him, and so I wasn't quite sure how it was going to work, and was I going to lose that support network? And
there's a lot of
Janice
fallout.
made it abundantly clear that was not going to happen.
Yeah, a lot of fallout from things like that. Yeah.
Yep. So and it didn't. Nobody ran away. Nobody left. Nobody turned. We just had to do some balancing.
There was a pivot.
There was.
I pivoted.
There was. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, to the point where I don't even know if you know this, but our good friend Nate made a comment one night. He's like, "It's so weird how when your ex is at the brewery, you're not, and when you are, he's not." And I looked at him and said, "That's because I called him and let them know to make sure that doesn't happen." He's like, "Oh, that is such a good idea. I wish I'd have thought of that." And I'm like, "You should too when you're going."
That's funny.
So yeah, well, it worked out that way. So anyway, as we're coming into the end of our time, what is like one last thought you want people to know about any of your stories about first responders, maybe young first responders coming in, or people thinking about being in that field?
Well, I think we need to start building a resiliency at the beginning of our career, even in the academy. And we need to develop a support network that's not a bunch of cops, not a bunch of firefighters. Have friends that are outside of that world that you can extract yourself from it and get out of that world and be back to normal. I think that's probably the most important thing, is just that support network.
Sure.
And again, it's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely. I mean, that's words to live by.
It's a great lesson.
It is. So cool. Mindy, it's been great to talk to you. We're at the end of our time here.
Good. Thank God.
Yeah, I know how much you love to get in front of people and talk. So it's a good thing.
Oh, yeah, it's my thing.
It's a good thing you went up through the ranks Yeah. So it's good that you went up through the ranks and became in charge and stuff. So you have to do that a lot.
I know, right?
But anyway, it's been great. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much. These
all of
stories
it.
have been great and so helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, guys, and thank you for doing this podcast. I think it's really important. I think it's good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's been a crazy little ride here for a while. Hopefully it gets crazy and keeps going.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Mindy.
We all have to decide. Yeah, we all have to decide what we're going to do with this one wild, wonderful life. And you guys have made that decision that you're going to help others. So I think that's great.
That's the goal.
Yep,
Thank you, Mindy,
perfect.
so much. These stories are great, and we appreciate you taking your time to give them to us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
You bet. Thanks, Mindy.
So, Chris,
Yeah.
that was a pretty good interview with Mindy. I really enjoyed hearing the stories.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are your takeaways from that? I mean, you were an EMS. You were that person. So, what did you take away?
Yeah. I've been out of the fire service now for about 5 years, and it's really nice to see and hear that the mental health issues and the grief side of that stuff is now becoming a much more important part of the job, and that they're spending more time and more resources on helping responders with that.
So they've moved away from suck it up buttercup to now we have a resource. We have a counselor. Didn't she say something about a counselor that if they needed extra help,
Yep, they have a counselor.
The city would pay for that?
Yeah.
So,
Which is amazing. Most cities don't do that.
is that what happens in Clear Lake? Do you know?
We do the critical. Since I've been off, I'm not sure what they're doing right now. But when I was there, we did the critical stress incident debriefings. But we didn't really have anybody on staff.
And just a reminder that, okay, that's when you sit around and you go around like, what was your experience? Everybody shares their experience.
You talk about the call and you share what you've seen, what you saw, and what you did. And then there's usually a facilitator there who's also a first responder of some sort, and then sometimes a chaplain or a therapist, a counselor of some sort.
When she said that, I thought about Brene Brown in one of her TED Talks where she talked about she needed to go see a therapist, but she said she needed to go to one that her bullshit meter is greater than the average.
Yes.
So that's the visual I got when they thought, if you got a first responder counselor, their bullshit meter is going to be really
off the charts.
Yeah. They
needs to be. It needs to be.
Like that. That's their specialty.
Yeah. Because everybody's had a loss of some sort.
Yes.
But not everybody's watched somebody have that loss and have to be the person to get them through that critical situation at that moment, an acute situation.
Right.
Like I've talked before about having mother over my shoulder screaming, "Save my baby," while I'm trying to do CPR.
Right. So this counselor is that person. They've gone through what you've gone through.
Yes.
So they're okay.
Yeah. Or at least have an understanding of it.
Right.
So, because if you haven't, it's pretty hard to counsel that.
Right. Well, and I also wanted to think what I want to address too is the compartmentalization, because we kind of do that in the funeral home business too. Like we compartmentalize.
Mm-hmm.
We can stand back, and people like how do you deal with that? I'd be sad all the time. You're not, because during a service, for example, there are things that we're doing. We're working while that service is going on, or during that. There are things that we're looking for, like if we're at a cemetery and we're burying someone. There are things that we are doing. We're not off the clock.
No, you have a process that you have to work through.
Right.
You have certain things that have to happen to make sure that everything goes well for the family. And it's the same thing on scene. We sort of have our checklist of things that we're looking for, that we have to do this and this and this and this and this. And you just focus on doing that.
For example, like CPR. You're focused on CPR.
Right.
You're not focused on, you're focused on saving someone's life at that point.
Right.
Or doing your best they can to do that.
Right, exactly.
So that's a focus.
Exactly.
Right.
But then you come off the scene and you just put it behind your mind. You just don't think about it until your bucket's full, until your bucket's full of shit and it's oozing out your ears. And then you start thinking about those things. And that's when it happens. But I think there's a parallel though, that I think everybody goes through that. They just go through it at a much slower pace because they don't have that many things happen to them. They don't see, like what Mindy say, normal people might have 3 or 4 critical incidents in their life. We might have 3 or 4 per shift or more, depending on the shift. Right.
So the mother that's asking you, save my baby, that is one moment in her life.
One of maybe 1 or 2.
where you may
That's-
run into that situation
I've done that twice in a day before.
with the baby.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is I think what we're doing for our first responders now is something that should be happening to everyone, just maybe at a lower level.
Right.
Because that's what's
Right.
happening to you as you go through life. You're having these experiences and you're having these losses and you're having these, you break up with this person dies, whatever it is.
Right.
You
Mom
know,
dies.
you're
dad
filling your
dies.
bucket. You're just filling your bucket at a much slower pace than the first responders are.
Right.
So if over your course of your lifetime you can scoop some of that shit out,
Right.
you're going to be a lot better off. So
it does raise a question for me,
Mhm.
for you. What's the burnout rate? I mean, what's the what's
honestly,
the rate of?
I don't know, because generally first responders won't admit that they're burning out, and so they'll hang on for a lot longer than they probably should.
Right. So they
may make it all the way to retirement.
they go through their shelf life differently.
Yes.
Okay. Because I was trying to figure
Yes.
that with funeral directors too. I think there's a rate. You see
Sure.
people that's the thing they do their whole career.
Mhm.
But
You're dealing death and loss and grief.
Right.
Every day is your job.
Wow. I just
So-
wondered. All right. It was a good show.
Yeah, it was great. So thank you, Mindy, for being here, and thank you for listening. And please listen again next week. Next week, I think is Friar Josh.
Oh, okay.
so
cool.
that should be a good show.
That will be a good show.
And please keep contacting us and sending us your stories and everything. It's so moving to get these messages from everyone. And hit us up at Chris at Forward Wellness for Caregivers. The word FOR, not the numeral 4. Chris at forwardwellness.com. Forwardwellness4caregivers.com. And we'll catch you next week.
Have a good week.
Yeah, you too. I'm going to need it.
Hey, Chris, I think we had another good show tonight. I think we nailed it. I think we got knocked it right out of the park.
Yeah, Rod, this is our circus and we are our monkeys.
This is so true. I'm really looking forward to the next show. I don't know what we're going to talk about.
I am too, and I thought you were figuring that out, so I guess maybe I'll help you with that.
Let's talk about that. Absolutely. But I'm really looking forward to whatever we talk about. It will be hopefully it'll be helpful. And
it'll be fun.
It will be fun.
So
yes,
do not miss
as
it.
fun as grief can be.
Exactly. So do not miss next week.
No.